Are smokeless fire pits overhyped? Well, in today's video, we're going to be testing the Solo Stove Bonfire 2.0 against this generic metal fire pit here to see which one is better. And we're using the top-down fire method for both fires. So in the Solo Stove here, it's a little bit over the top, over the holes. It's not recommended, but once the fire starts to burn, I will keep it below the holes. And that's really important for the secondary burn on the Solo Stove once it gets heated up. Over here on the open fire pit, we've got the exact same method for building fire. Looks a little bit smaller in here. That's just because this is a much larger fire pit. So let's look at the differences between the two fire pits before we get things started. First thing is the diameter of the fire pits. The internal diameter of this open fire pit is 23. On the Solo Stove, we have an internal diameter of 17.25 inches. So it's considerably smaller. As for height on the Solo Stove here, we do have the little base on the bottom here, meaning you can use it on more surfaces than you would do if you were putting this straight on the ground, which I really like. It's on my patio, so it doesn't really matter. But to the top of the burn chamber, I guess it's 16.5 inches. Or if you don't have the base plate, it's 14 inches, is 16.5 inches tall. The main difference on the actual build is this is open. You can get heat out the side here. It's going to draw in a lot of air. It's a great fire pit if you're looking for a cheaper option. If you're looking for a more expensive option, and much more expensive, then this Solo Stove does a great job as well. You'll see that there's no holes on the side, and that's because there's actually a chamber in here. So there's an outside skin and an inside skin, and what it does is it heats up the air in there as the fire starts to get warmer, and then that draws colder air up, and then you get secondary burn out here, meaning it's a smokeless fire pit. There's the last thing. This is a smokeless fire pit. The open fire pit is not a smokeless fire pit, and you'll probably see that as we get both these fires going, that this one's going to produce a lot of smoke, and this one's going to produce very little. You might be looking at this and wondering, how are we going to determine which fire pit is better? Well, we're going to look at smoke development. We're going to look at which one is easier to light, which one is easier to keep running, and we'll look at which one keeps you warmer if you're sitting around that fire pit. So I did a little bit of research online, and I found that an average distance to sit from your fire is around about 30 inches. So this one here, I've got 30 inches, and not from the outside rim. I've got it from the, well, outside of the burn chamber. 30 inches from the outside here, and it looks like this one's a little bit further away than the open fire pit, and that's just because the ring around the side, it makes it look like it's got a large diameter, so therefore the chair is closer. Now, how are we going to measure the temperature difference between how much heat has been put off? Well, we've got an infrared thermometer here, and we've got the chairs positioned the exact same distance from the fire. So I'm going to take 3 measurements. I'm going to use my infrared thermometer here. I'll leave this link in the description below if you need an infrared thermometer for any use. I'm going to take a measurement right here, so we'll get an initial temperature for each side. So right now this wood is 49 degrees. We're going to get one here where your hand goes, and I'm going to get one back here where your back will be, and then we can assess to see how much heat this chair is picking up from the fire. And then with this information, we can say that if your hand were here, it would get more heat from the fire. Therefore, that fire would be warmer if you're sitting around it. I'm going to light the fire lighters that we're using. And we'll get the paper going as well. Now we can sit back and wait a few minutes to see how they get going. I'm going to get my initial measurements for both. Yeah, so we're at 49.4 all around. Don't be alarmed when you get your Solo started. It is going to smoke a little bit, and that's because it's not warm enough in the chamber there to start burning off as a secondary burn. So just let it get started and get it warmed up, and then you will start to see the smoke disappear. So we're 10 minutes in, and you can see the Solo Stove is doing exceptionally well. Over here, we got a really good fire going here in this open fire pit. We're at 30 minutes now, so let's take our temperatures. We have 58.2. It's clearly getting warmer there. Legs, 57.9. And in the back, we have 53.9. We have 57.9 for the hand. Legs, 53.6. 52.5. So we just hit an hour, so let's get the readings. Start off with at the back. We have 53.4, which hasn't changed. Hands, 63.6. And down here we have 61.1. We have 64.7, 53.2, 55.2. The Solo Stove won the tests of how easy to start, how easy it was to keep going, and the fact it's smokeless, it won those tests hands down without a question. As open fire, it kept my legs and below warmer than the Solo Stove. Hands and back were about the same temperature, and that's because of these holes around the side. It allows heat to come out on the sides, whereas the Solo Stove does not allow that. For the most part of this test, this fire was pretty small compared to the capacity of this fire pit. So I did build this fire out a lot larger. I think I could have got a lot more heat transferred to the chair around this. Stove, I could have added a heat deflector, but that thing is expensive and it's actually more than an entire fire pit. If you want to find out how to build a top-down fire, then you should check out this video over here where I build one in the Solo Stove.